Hey, hi everybody. It's Monday around pushing on 11 a.m. on the Pacific time here out here on the West Coast where I'm hanging out. Watching the market today, everybody's starting to notice the preponderance of bullish sentiment relative to bearish sentiment, especially with that investment advisors survey that I was looking at over the weekend. And one thing about the market is a lot of times it's the market that watches itself. So right here, you got one of my monitors that you're looking at. I run several monitors, so this is one I have. Working some positions right now that I like actually. What I'm noticing here today is like Netflix today is violated the 10-day moving average, but remember it doesn't tend to hold the 10-day moving average in general. So I'm looking at the 50 days, probably where it's coming down to. And I got to be honest, I might actually end up buying this thing coming down into the 50-day moving average. It kind of depends on how it's acting. Right now, you're really looking at volume that's 11% below average for this time of the day. So not really a lot of selling coming in here, but everybody's getting scared because I guess this firm and that firm, Google's going to offer movies, everybody's going to offer movies, and it's just a terrible thing. So this may just come down and test. But that said, I don't own the stock. We had a little position in it, but on the violation, we decided to sell it and let it come down and then see if we want to come back into it. Some of the stocks that I like today, notice RAX here. I think it's very interesting. It's holding up very tightly along its 10-day moving average. You can barely see the pink moving average. But you notice here, see the volume right here on this day? Let me pull up the little thing here. So right on this day right there, that's a little pocket pivot. So I like this stock in here. It's actually working on the third week of a possible 3 weeks tight. And I think one of the themes going forward might be the need for server space for the so-called cloud and whatnot. And so I'm kind of looking at that right now. It looks kind of interesting. I also think Amazon is another play in that area. I mean, like I said before, if there is such a thing as a cloud, Amazon might be it. But you notice the stock's come up and it's holding, so I'd look for it to continue to hold. It might pull back, but it's interesting. But I think the most compelling thing, and I own it, just so you know, I just bought a little bit here today, is the RAX. I think that looks okay. I'll also notice you're seeing more stuff stocks start to set up, and we might see some rotation. That's kind of what I'm watching for here, is rotation into stuff stocks. So that would include things like Cliffs Natural Resources, which has come up. It's trying to build a little base. Freeport-McMoRan. Some of the coals, maybe I like this PCK. I own a little bit of this one coming up off the 50-day. You had a pocket pivot in here. You're pulling back. Volume's kind of light. So just kind of working them small, letting them come in. I also like this Pan American Silver. They are the second largest primary silver miner in the world. They have a new mine coming online potentially in the next few months called Navidad. I think it's somewhere in South America. But you had a big breakout. You're pulling back. A lot of volume today, but it's actually holding in okay. So I kind of like nibbling on this as it comes in a little bit. Looks okay to me. I also noticed CAT, which is a stuff stock. Strong mover up here. Not a lot of volume coming up on the peak here, so you're entitled to pull back. I think nibbling here at the 20-day is something I'm interested in doing, so a little bit of that. And I also noticed things like Joy Global. It's coming in, but see, I don't buy this noise that you want to be buying up here. This is your pivot point up here at 100 and change, and now it's below the pivot point. I think pocket pivots are better to use these days, and I also think trendline pivots, using a trend line. So for example, you can see here's your trend line. You broke out here actually, so to me that's the pivot point. Okay, not up here at around 100. And I know some people say that you got to go to the high, but when you're coming up like this and you have a kind of a pointy peak here, that's a little sketchy to me. So coming in here, Joy Global is drying up on the volume. I don't know, maybe it holds, but I like Caterpillar better. So also looking at Deere, it's doing the same thing. So if you've got, what's going on here? Here we go. If you do this, you're still, this is really your breakout. This is not your pivot point up here. And if you're using that as your pivot point, I think you're just way too high. You've got a little bit of type of a pocket pivot type move in here. You're a little extended for the 10-day, but the volume is pretty good. So now you've moved out and you're pulling back, and it almost seems like it's typical for the market. And you can see as we're pushing 11 o'clock Pacific, the Dow's turning green, the Nasdaq's down, pretty heavy volume on the Nasdaq. But as I was showing you guys over the weekend, you got stocks like let me get rid of this thing. Remove here and get rid of that. And you got Apple coming in. You know, Apple's dead money at best, I think. The only thing about it is, yeah, I think it's going to head for the 200-day eventually, but you're going to need a bear market type move for that to happen. So I think that this may come in here, undercut the lows, and noodle around for a bit. The other thing to keep in mind is Apple. Everybody loves Apple, and I own a bunch of their stuff too. iPads are great. And I think that most value buyers, you know, 14, 13 times forward earnings, you're going to see value buyers come in and support the stock. So it's not going to be this big swoosh to the downside, I don't think. So, you know, we're still on a buy signal. So you kind of don't want to be a pig on the short side or think the market's going to break or anticipate the market breaking. And actually, what I'm doing right now is looking at pullbacks and leading stocks with the idea that we might get a rotation into stuff. And primarily that's based on my view that despite the fact that we had a budget deal over the weekend in Congress, the amount of cuts are piddly. They're really nothing significant. And I think the U.S. government has no choice, you know, as I've said, default or devalue. And they're going to use inflation to devalue the dollar and basically inflate their way out of the debt crisis. You know, Brazil did that, I think, back in the 80s, 19,000% inflation. I don't think you're going to get that. Mainly because we have an independent central bank. The Fed is independent, and hopefully Congress doesn't take over the Fed. If Congress takes over the Fed, all bets are off, and you're in big trouble. But anyways, I think that the basis for this is that you're going to have an inflation move here, and so that's why you've seen, you know, silver continue higher. Barron's came out today and said that the upside, the trend could end, the rally could end. Oh, well, how do they know? You know, and Barron's is notorious for being wrong. But you get a little pullback, and you know what? You're entitled to a pullback here. You could potentially come into the 10-day moving average. I would use the 20-day as my ultimate guide for a stop. You have had no entry points on silver since the 20-day moving average, okay? So you don't really want to be buying it. We're using an algorithm internally where we're adding up every 10%, but we've tested this thing out. It's a little bit complicated, and I don't recommend that you try and do that. Look for the pullbacks to be buying into these things, okay? The other stocks acting pretty well. Baidu's doing pretty well. Like I said, over the weekend, I think Chinese stocks doing well tells you that maybe China is going to decouple from the dollar, back their currency with silver and gold, and that's why, of course, silver, not SELV, but SLV and gold have been acting pretty well. You know, this gold is still slow relative to silver, but it's still going higher in my view. So you want to use your pullbacks to buy into the GLD if that's what you want. Meanwhile, some of the bigger caps, Oracle's acting okay. You know, you're getting pullbacks in Lyondell. That looks all normal to me. There's really nothing going on. But, you know, the way I look at it right now, with the way the market is, let me just bring up another chart here with the NASDAQ. Oh, where do we go here? There it is. Whoops, wrong one. Here we go. Up here, look at that. Well, this is the NASDAQ daily chart. Is that right? No, that's not the one I'm looking for. It's in here somewhere. Now let's bring up another one. We don't want it to float. That's good. NASDAQ, bring in the index. You're just pulling in here. The volume looks heavy here, but I'm not sure what that's all about. I'm not really too concerned about it. You're not really breaking down real hard. You get the Nasdaq Composite down about 9. The Nasdaq 100 is what's really taking the brunt of it today, and I think that's Apple coming in and Netflix coming in. So other than that, I'm not really too concerned. I'd be looking to buy some of these, and I think what they're going to do here is push the market higher on the inflation play, and so that's what I'm looking at here. You know, my better ideas here that I like are the TCK, the RAX, RAX I think is looking good, and it's in position. May go sideways a little bit more, but that's nice and tight. I like CAT here on the pullback, and I like Pan American Silver, which I own, okay? I own those 4. And we also have a position in MCP, which continues higher, and today we had somebody raise, I think it was JP Morgan, raise their price target to 90 bucks. You know, things like CRM are hanging in there. I like AMX. This is kind of interesting. American Mobile, which is a South American cell phone company. It's been coming up and it's building kind of a double bottom here. Looking okay. Some of the newer things I'm looking at here. Meanwhile, you've got things like Lulu is coming in here a little bit. And not too much there. It could pull back. You know, this thing could pull back all the way down into the mid to low 80s, and it might still be okay. You notice the volume is drying up, so it ran up pretty sharply. And of course, everybody's always concerned when something starts to pull back, but they're never concerned when it's running up, which is the old adage, or shall we say, a corollary of the old adage that Livermore used to say: you hope when you should fear, and you fear when you should hope. So today, I'm more taking a view of hoping, or yeah, hoping instead of fearing, and not really getting myself in a tizzy. Uh, and some of these stocks are acting okay, so don't really have a big issue with it. I think you'll see some of these other stuff stocks perhaps start to come around. But I think some of your bigger ones are CAT, and I think this TCK looks pretty good as long as it holds the 50-day moving average coming around the right side. Those things look fine. Meanwhile, silver's entitled to pull back, so don't let all the negative Nellies get you out of the position, because my view is this thing will top when everybody loves it. And I've tried to run my silver story by everybody I know of, including Fox Business News. I started out at 20 bucks when the thing was first starting to move back in September, and of course nobody believed me then. Nobody believed me when I went on at the end of the year, and I still like silver, and nobody believed me when I thought it was breaking out through 30, and nobody believes me now. So with that going on, I'm not so sure silver's topping. I think it's still headed for 50 bucks. 50.50 is my near-term target, and I'm going to stick to that until evidence proves otherwise. And I think with the inflation play coming in, and basically the U.S. government is going to have to inflate their way out of this debt morass that they've gotten us into. That's what you can expect. And of course, those of you who use gas, fortunately I don't use very much, since all I have to do is roll up and down the hill from where I live here in Playa del Rey down to the beach in Playa del Rey, so I don't have to go very far. But $4.38, I think is what I paid yesterday to fill up my tank. So. But as long as my stocks and my silver keep going up, I'll have enough money to pay for gas. So that's what I'm seeing right now, you guys. If you have any questions, you know where to email. Okay, we'll talk to you later.